Many years ago, the Jewish people lived in the land of Persia. The Persians had conquered Jerusalem and taken the Jewish people away as captives, and many generations later, they still lived there. The king of the Persians, Ahasuerus, decided he wanted a new wife, so he commanded that all the women of the country be sent to him so he could choose the most beautiful to be the queen. In that city, there lived a Jewish woman named Esther, with her cousin Mordecai, who had raised her as if she were his own. And he said to her, "Do not tell the king that you are Jewish. He may not treat you fairly, or he may hate you because of who you are." So Esther went to the palace with all the other women, and the king chose her to be the new queen, but she hadn't told him who she was. Soon after the marriage, Mordecai discovered that there was a plot to kill the king. He told Esther, she told her husband, and the men were hanged. This was all written down in the royal diary. At court, there was an arrogant, boastful man named Haman. Everyone had to bow down to him because he was one of the king's favorites. But Mordecai refused. Haman was furious. He wanted to kill Mordecai, but then it wasn't enough just to kill Mordecai. He wanted to kill every single Jew in Persia. And he persuaded the king to send out orders for this to be done. The cruel commands were copied out and sent all over the kingdom. All Jews were to be killed, young and old, men, women, and children. When Mordecai heard about this, he wept and tore his clothes in grief. He could not go into the royal court himself, but he sent a message to Esther, begging her to plead with the king to change his mind. But the royal laws were strict. Ahasuerus, the king, had many wives, and none, not even Esther, could go to him without being sent for. The penalty for disobeying this was death. But Mordecai would not give up. "If you say nothing," he said, "if you do nothing now, in this time of all times, the Jews may be saved some other way, but you and your family will die. Perhaps this is the reason that God made you the queen. Perhaps you have been sent to court for just such a time as this. Speak to the king." So Esther was convinced. "I will break the law and tell him," she said. "And if I die, I die." But she was patient. For 3 days, she prayed all by herself. With all the courage that she had, Esther went to the throne room to see the king, even though he hadn't invited her, even though she knew that meant she could be put to death. But when he saw her, the king remembered how much he loved her, and he put out his hand and welcomed her, and said, "My queen, what is it that you want? I will give you anything, even if it is half my kingdom." And she said, "I want you to invite Haman to a feast with us." The proud man went around boasting. "I'm the only one Queen Esther has invited to the feast," she said, "but I hate the sight of Mordecai standing at the palace gate. I'm going to have a gallows built to hang him on." And that is what he did. That night the king couldn't sleep, so he decided to read the royal diary. There he discovered that Mordecai had saved him from 2 murderers. He wanted to thank him, so he sent for Haman. "What should be done for a man whom the king wants to honor?" he asked. Haman thought the king was talking about him, so he thought of the most wonderful thing he could imagine. "Let them lead him through the streets in a royal robe on a royal horse," he said. And then the king said, "Very good. Do that for Mordecai, who has saved my life." Haman was furious. When the procession was over, he went home and wept out of jealousy. The banquet took place, and as they were eating and drinking, the king said again to Esther, "What do you want, my queen? Whatever it is, I will give it to you, even if it's half the kingdom." And Esther said, "My king, I want to live, because me and my people are set to be killed. I am a Jew, and there has been an order to kill all the Jews." And the king asked, "Who would do such a thing?" And Esther explained how everything had been Haman's idea, the cruel plot against the Jews. Ahasuerus ordered that Haman should be hanged on the gallows that he had built for Mordecai. Mordecai was brought before the king and given his own ring, a great honor. And new laws went out through all the kingdom that if anyone tried to attack the Jews, they were allowed to defend themselves. And the Jews were safe in Persia from that day. And that's our story.